Hello, everyone, and welcome to our fourth AMA today. I think it's the fourth AMA today. Some of you, I've seen you posting questions in all of them, so thank you so much for sticking with us. My name is Joe Lurie. I'm on the Intune product group. I'm on I'm on a team that focuses on customers, and I talk to customers, and I talk to our product leaders and our product managers, and I've got a few of them with us right now. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, and the way I see it on the screen, I'm going to go clockwise, Julia, then Lavanya, and then Encore. Julia, if you can give us a little introduction and what you do on our team.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. My name is Julia E. Daiwar. I have a background in policy and endpoint security. Right now, I'm working on the first ever agent in Intune, which is called the Vulnerability Remediation Agent, and helping optimize enterprise security and endpoint management in Intune. So excited to see you guys.
Cool. Thanks, Julia. Lavanya.
Hey everyone, a lot of you might already know me. I'm Lavanya Lakshman. I'm the principal product manager here on the Intune team. I have been the lucky one who's got to work from day one of generative AI. So this journey has been super fun and looking forward to this AMA session. Over to you, Ankur.
Hey everyone, I'm Ankur Goyal, one of the product managers on the Copilot in Intune team, specifically looking at all of our Copilot chat capabilities that are available in Intune.
Great, thanks, Encore, Lavanya, and Julia. I'm going to get started right away because we're actually only down to about 25 minutes left. And for as our producers call it, a dated reference, I'm a little fuzzy right now. I'm a max headroom, and I apologize about that. I might have to talk to my internet provider about that. Our first question is coming from Andrew. And Andrew, I did see that you posted questions in other AMAs as well. So again, thank you so much for joining all of our AMAs today, or at least the ones that I saw you post questions in. Andrew asks, and Andrew, I'm going to be honest with you, you're not the only person with this question. A lot of my customers have this question, and a lot of my peers' customers have this question as well. Andrew's question is, are there any plans to make Copilot for Intune available independently of a security Copilot subscription? Our organization relies heavily on Intune, but we don't use the broader security Copilot features, so the bundled cost might not be as justifiable for us. Would love to benefit from Copilot capabilities within Intune without needing the full suite of Copilot. Lavanya, I'm going to start with you since you have been with Copilot and Intune from the beginning, and then anyone else can pop in after that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Andrew, for that question. And no surprises there. We've heard this feedback before. Couple of things is what I would call out. And again, I'm not a marketing expert, so I'm not going to go into the pricing details, but from a product and a technical standpoint, I think the ask to kind of have the Copilot and Intune capabilities kind of ring fence to more of the Intune experience is something that we are already working on, and ensuring that, let's say you do have a subscription and that subscription is leveraged only for the AI capabilities within Intune product. That's something that we are actively working on, and hopefully we should be able to start rolling out something soon. So we'll keep you posted. You know that we have a way in which we do reach out to the community to keep you all updated on things coming in production.
Thanks, Lavanya. And for those of you that don't know how to get in touch with us, you can join our Customer Connection Program, which is, we call it CCP. And hopefully we have that link for you, but it's at aka.ms/join MMCCP, I believe. But our producers will get that and flash it on the screen in just one moment. And just to follow a little bit on what Lavanya was saying and what Andrew's question was, thank you, aka.ms/join CCP. You can join the Intune and Windows Customer Connection Program. In order to get Microsoft Intune or Copilot within Intune, you do get the Security Copilot suite, if you will, and then that includes Intune as well, and that's where Andrew was going with that. So we have another question that came up in the chat. When will we see Copilot start to take automated actions in Intune, like recommending or deploying a policy change? Encore, I see you nodding your head, so I'm going to come to you first on that one.
Sure, thanks, Joey. Also, I would say one of the questions that we get asked a lot, I would say the best way to describe it is there are different versions or different variations of taking actions. Some of them are automated. Some of them are taking the help of the human involved to get approvals of the actions. The way we're thinking about automated actions, I would say it goes back to Copilot agents, where an analysis done by the agents and they come back with certain recommendations. We are thinking of ways in which certain simpler tasks can be automated through Copilot, but in most cases, we're thinking these are not going to be automated end to end. There will always be some kind of a human individual that is going to be involved. We want you to look at the results. We want you to look at the data, analyze, and confirm before Copilot can take an action. So that's how I would describe as our current path in which we're trying to figure out what actions can be taken by Copilot. And Julia, I would love to hear your thought as well. You're directly involved in our vulnerability remediation agent.
Yeah, thanks, Ankur. Building on what you said, so I'm the product manager working on the vulnerability remediation agent. And similar to what Ankur said, taking automated actions, that can mean so many different things to a lot of different admins. But at the end of the day, if we are taking any impacts or actions on devices, it's a very intrusive action. Let's say deploying a policy that could affect hundreds of thousands of devices. So we really want to be focused on making sure that there is a safe rollout in place, and that takes time to investigate and really understand what that means in different environments. So right now, part of the question, if I'm reading correctly, says, when will we see recommending policy changes? So that's something that if you have the vulnerability remediation agent in your environment right now, we're already doing. So there are configuration policies tied to the agent recommendations, if it's applicable for that vulnerability. So you'll see actual policies that are being recommended by the agent. Something on our roadmap that we're hoping to do in the near future is, like you mentioned, having a bit more of that remediation aspects where we are taking certain actions, like, maybe creating a template for the agent to take action on, or for the admin to take action on. The agent kind of gets you 80% of the way there, and the admin has to do the rest. So like Ankur said, it's difficult to have a fully automated action in such an intrusive space like policy management and endpoint security, because at the end of the day, we want to build that trust and enable admins to have the full control and oversight. So that looks like, augmented remediation. So, we are building that, and we're working on kind of creating a middle ground there, but automated actions is something that will be coming probably in the later future. Right now, we're really focused on building that foundation first with the right data and the right insights that are relevant to your environment.
And I think this also ties in very well, Julia, to some of the feedback that we have received from our customers, right? Where they have been very explicit in telling us that, oh, you know what, don't just go ahead and take automated actions. We would like to be in control. So that means there is that curation process where once they feel comfortable, which is where you were touching upon the aspect of trust and ensuring that the insights are really relevant to what they are looking for, to be able to take that right action on the endpoints, right? So I think having the admins involved in the process, and then they kind of providing us consent for something to be elevated from let's say a manual to an automated workflow, I think it still needs to be something that they approve of, rather than we just automatically taking some action.
This is a theme that I heard all three of you mention, is Copilot should be recommending these solutions, and the admin still should be verifying the solution is the right solution in that case. And for all of you out there, this is true of really all AI. You shouldn't just do the work. It should get you there. It should do the research for you, absolutely, but you still need to make that final decision. And it was a great question. So thanks for asking it. And I love the full answer on there. We got another question that came from Vaishnav on Tech Community, and this is about our endpoint privilege management solution. One thing that we recently added, maybe in April or May of this year, we added the ability, we kind of incorporated Copilot into EPM so that when the end user is doing a support approved EPM, that support person might be getting hundreds of these every day or even every hour. And so for them to know specifically what this binary does, should I approve it for this user? What does this binary do? I'm just going to go ahead and blindly approve. Instead, we've incorporated Copilot to actually analyze that binary with Copilot. So Vaishnav is noticing in EPM, there's an option to analyze with Copilot, which is intended to analyze the elevated binary and provide relevant insights about the file, such as whether the file is safe to approve or if it contains any potential malicious content. However, this feature is not always working as intended. Instead of delivering detailed information about the binary, it's consistently returning a generic output for every elevation request. What we're seeing is there was no reputation data available for the queried indicator. Lavanya, why might that happen? Why might that message be popping up?
Yeah, so Joey, one thing that we need to understand is, and again, I'll just take a moment before I answer Vaishnav's question to kind of bring a little bit of awareness of how things work. The way we look, there is a reason why we leverage Security Copilot as a platform, because that platform is the one that kind of brings information across the various other products together, be it Defender, Purview, Entra, Intune, and others. And for us, depending what our customers' ecosystem really looks like and what products they have is where the information gets curated to be able to answer the response or answer the prompts within the Intune Copilot experience. Right now, one follow-up question for Vaishnav would be, and again, this is something that we can take offline as well, but to answer this question a little more generically, if the tenant is only entitled to Intune, then we will not have the reputation data. Just based on the generic output that I'm seeing, what I'm understanding is there is no access to the other 1P products from where we do receive this reputation data, essentially coming from the Defender product. And that will be a key information that gets fed into the response that EPM does provide. So I think that will be something for Vaishnav and team to go look at, whether they do have access to the other 1P products. And also, this is a great reminder for all of us that the way the system works, Copilot or any of the Intune AI capabilities is not a backdoor entry to any of the data that's available. What that essentially means is if there is a specific rollback access control in place, that will continue to be honored without that getting breached. So that means if an admin has access to only look at a specific geography and a certain set of data, then that's all they will have access to. So that means that's the only information that will be available even for Copilot to be able to reason over and provide a response.
Go ahead, Ankur.
I was just wanted to add on one more point to what Lavanya just mentioned. This is also how we're beginning to think about how these security products work end-to-end together. So even though a user might be in one specific product like Entra or Defender or Intune, there's a lot of information that's working behind the scenes and a lot of analysis what Copilot is doing and trying to get from all these security products. So it's sort of the beginning of like our end-to-end workflow where the information that you're trying to get is not solely restricted to that specific product, even though your role might be restricted. So that's why the responses to what Copilot can get and the responses to what Copilot answers for a prompt with your roles versus someone else with another role is going to be different because of the information it has access to and the data it has access to.
Yeah, it's a great point. And just for clarity, as Lavanya was talking about 1P products, she's talking about our first party, Microsoft owned things like Microsoft Defender and whatnot, as opposed to some of you might be using a third party security or vulnerability agent on your devices. But also Lavanya's question, she, as she was answering, she started talking about the RBAC or the role-based access controls, which is a great segue into actually the next question that popped up. As this feature evolves, as Copilot in Intune evolves, will we see the ability to customize that Copilot experience for the different admin roles? Or will all admin roles have access to all parts of the Copilot experience within Intune? And Levine, I think you started to talk about that. If there's anything else you want to add to that as well.
Yeah, so one thing I would say is rather than just looking at it as a Copilot experience tailored to different admin roles, I would say essentially it is how the Copilot experience should be configured, right? So that means if an existing policy is in place that does talk about the capabilities, then that is something that you can definitely control with. What I think at this point in time, the way we really look at it is if you do have security, Copilot, compute units in place along with Intune Suite, then that's the entire data set that's available. And if you're a global admin, you have certain capabilities. You are an Intune admin, you have certain capabilities. So I think it's all very closely tied to the admin roles. Now, in terms of the experience, what you would like to see at this point in time, we really it is intentional why we are not necessarily ring fencing the experience, because the whole idea of AI is for you to be able to use this across the wide range of capabilities that exist within Intune. But specifically, if the question is more focused towards end user Copilot and what an end user can do with regard to a Copilot, that is something that we look at it completely differently as against the way we are building the product more from an admin roles.
And Julia, when we think about the IVRA agent that you're building, is there a specific role that will be needed for that one once it becomes generally available? Is it, you need to be an Intune global admin or security admin? Will there be separate RBAC roles even for the vulnerability remediation agent?
Yeah, great question. So, when it comes to vulnerability remediation, this is essentially a tag team effort between IT and security. And so there are different scopes that are involved. And so in our agent, like I mentioned, we are building, so where the agent is pulling in data from Defender and using that dynamic data to recommend actionable insights. And so, there are certain parts of the agent that are only accessible with specific roles. So we already have kind of RBAC enforcements in there today. There are a lot of, even in the calls that we've had with some customers, there's some interest in the ability to kind of scope certain data sets or scope certain actions to specific roles and have the ability to, let's say, assign certain actions to specific admins. So it doesn't exist. These features don't exist in the agent today, but we've gotten some really good feedback on looking to see that kind of siloed workflow or a delegated workflow that's able to enable admins to take actions faster, depending on what's more relevant to them. So not yet quite in the agent today, outside of just general RBAC enforcements, but that is something that we're looking to do in the future.
Cool, thanks for that. I'm going to come back to you in just a minute, but before that, we have a question from Aaron on LinkedIn about audit data, audit logs. I'm going to assume that Aaron was watching the last AMA because Matt Call was talking about how verbose our audit logs might be sometimes. And we've gotten comments that sometimes they might be a little too verbose, but we do want you to get all the possible data you could get on who's doing what within Intune. But Aaron on LinkedIn asked, will Copilot be able to pull audit log data with certain search filters criteria that the admin requests? Is there a way that we can use Copilot to kind of reason through those audit logs?
So
go ahead.
No, I was about to say, I will take a first pass and then I'll hand it over to Ankur because I think Ankur will have a lot more insights to share here. At a very high level, today, do we have the ability? The answer to that is no. But are we thinking about it? Absolutely. But there are a few things that we really are exploring. Is a lot of you who have used M365 Copilot, you would have seen a researcher capability, right, where it is able to go research into whatever are the supported content that you could ask the Copilot to go take a look at it. One of the things that we've been asked in the past by our customers is, oh, will we have some equivalent capability on our side? So those are some of the experiences that we are exploring now. When, how, and what would be feasible, considering that this is not a creative content, right? This is a very ring-fenced, curated customer content that we are talking about. So we really need to be careful, ensuring that we are not breaching any of our RAI privacy and compliance boundary to go get super creative about this data, or what kind of filters and criteria that we would want to apply. Again, the key thing that will play a role in terms of what and how much we can do on this data also is tied very closely with the RBAC that I was talking about earlier on. So I think that is where we are. Again, it's a great question. We've had this come to us in the past as well. And like I mentioned, there are a lot of complexities, and we need to do it the right way, as against just trying to do a partial analysis on the audit log data, which may not necessarily help the admins, but in fact take them in the other direction, which is the last thing that we would want as a product experience. Ankur, do you want to add more?
Yeah, so to add on to what Lavanya just mentioned, if you've looked at the Copilot in Intune capabilities, one of the things that we launched in July is the ability for you to use Copilot to be able to explore your Intune data. And that's our way of how you can go about using Copilot for all kinds of different questions about Intune objects like apps, policies, devices, compliance policies, and whatnot, and start to get a lot of information, a lot of data about it. And we're constantly adding more and more capability, more and more data and prompts that you could use to get that information. One of the things that we have been thinking about is what kind of information and capability can and should we enable as part of that capability, so you can now begin to access specific kinds of information from those audit logs. And I would again go back to the point that Lamini just made, like, we can't give you everything that the audit logs capture, but we have to be able to synthesize it and give it to you in a way that's going to be beneficial, that's going to be helpful. So I would go back to Aaron and say, please reach out to us. If there is specific kinds of information you think would be helpful, or specific kinds of questions you think you should be able to use Copilot for to get the information from those audit logs, I would love to get that information from you.
Aaron, there's two ways that you could do that. One, you could join the CCP, as we talked about earlier, aka.ms/join CCP, if you're not already a member. The other way is we have a Microsoft Security Copilot, or Microsoft Intune Copilot category in our Intune feedback. So you can go to aka.ms/Intune feedback and look for the Microsoft Intune Copilot, I think is the category. It's under the M's. I forget which order we put all the words, but it's under the M's in the categories, and you can add your feedback there as well. I think we have time maybe for one more question. So I'm going to come back up to Julia. We talked about the IVRA agent. What's the status of that now? We got a question asking, what's the status of that feature right now? What kind of things can it do for us? I don't think I've seen any updates. Is this agent now available broadly? What types of suggestions does it provide? And does it prioritize these suggestions?
Yeah, great question. So the agent is currently in a limited public preview. So there are certain prerequisites that your environment would need to meet in order to have this agent enabled. So I think the best way to ensure that you have those criteria are to, again, either join CCP and I think, I'm not sure, Joe, if we have like an email or something more broadly or more specific than CCP, but if you reach out to that team and you should be able to kind of get onboarded if you meet the prerequisites. And so I'll leave the specifics for there. And the question of what kind of suggestions does the agent have and how does it prioritize those suggestions? So I mentioned a little bit earlier that the agent pulls data from Defender, data such as specific vulnerabilities, specific, exposed devices, et cetera. And the agent leverages those that data and insights in order to provide a Copilot assisted actionable recommendation steps. And so you get a step-by-step remediation guide on how to take action on those specific vulnerabilities in Intune. You're also able to export for all the exposed devices, you're able to export the devices into a CSV format that's compatible with Entra, and you can directly import that device list into Entra to create a group and take action on those devices, such as creating a policy, creating an app object, etc. So you're able to those are the main kind of insights that the agent leverages. You can see OS vulnerabilities, app-related vulnerabilities, and also, like I mentioned, policy configurations that the agent recommends in order to reduce your attack surface. And the way that the agent, again, prioritizes these remediations or these vulnerabilities are through Defender data. So Defender has something called an impact score, which is essentially how much of an impact taking action on those vulnerabilities would decrease your secure score. So that all might sound like rocket science right now, but essentially the agent uses Defender's secure score to prioritize actions that would either increase it the most, and so you'll see a prioritized list based on that. So a lot of great insights there with the agent. And again, if you want to get that agent enabled in your tenant, be sure to join CCP and ensure that you meet that criteria that is called out in documentation and that you probably get more information on.
Great, thanks so much. We have time for one more question, then Lavanya, I know you would like to talk about the trial, but let's get this last question in first. And Ankur, I'm going to come to you about this. And this is a question I get all the time as well from my customers. Since Security Copilot uses compute units or SCUs within Entra, is there any suggestion or recommendations on how many units one could expect to need for an Intune admin use only? This also goes back to it's not just being used by Intune, it's being used by the security team as well. But how many SCUs are we expecting the Intune admins to possibly use in a month?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. And again, one of those questions that we get asked often, and I'll give you maybe a different version of the answer this time around. I think a lot of how many SCUs you could use actually depends on the use case and how you intend to use Copilot and where are you using it. So there's different number of SCUs you're going to need if you're inside the Intune portal and are using Copilot in Intune within that portal, versus you're on the Security Copilot platform and you're using maybe asking a question that refers to Intune or any of the other Microsoft security products. But at the same time, let's say for a second you're inside the Intune portal, a lot of how many SCUs each prompt, each answer is going to get depends on your tenant, on your environment. A simple basic prompt that has a lot less devices that aren't configured properly are going to consume a lot less in comparison to a fully functional tenant with maybe 10, 15,000, 20,000 devices with hundreds of policies set up, hundreds of apps on each devices. So depending on what the device is, what the policy is, how mature the tenant is, and the configuration, your environment, the SCUs are really going to differ. I would suggest the best thing for you to figure out how many SCUs you might need is to understand the capabilities Copilot provides and see which ones do you think you will end up using. So for example, Copilot in Intune, for your users, if you think device troubleshooting is the biggest use case, I would say let's look at those kind of prompts and we can come back with, hey, here's roughly an average how many SCUs they consume. And so if that's the scenario, your consumption is going to be slightly different versus using the broader Copilot and Intune capability.
Thanks, Ankur. I'm not sure we have time for final thoughts, but Lavanya, talk to us about the trial. If there's a nomination form that they can fill out to join a Copilot trial within Intune.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to make this super fast because we hardly have any time left. So if any of you are interested in signing up for trials and you've never used the product and want to understand more, Joey, if we can share the link with this audience, they can go ahead, and if they're working with the account team, please leverage your account team to go ahead and send your nominations. Again, just because you're sending us the nomination doesn't mean you will be selected, but we will try our best to accommodate and ensure you're able to use the trial experience of the product.
We'll get that link in the chat here. And by the way, this chat will be open till noon on Friday. So if you're watching this on demand, if you have other questions as you're rewatching this, because we flew through some of this information, you can continue asking us questions right in the comments in Tech Community, and we'll keep answering them until noon Redmond time. That's US Pacific time on Friday. I don't know, 10, I don't know. Whatever, October 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, October 10th, I believe that day would be. I want to thank Julia, Ankur, Lavanya. Thank you so much. All of you that have joined us for all 4 AMAs or even 1 or 2 AMAs, thank you so much. If you didn't get a chance to watch the other 3, again, those are they're available on demand. You can continue asking questions. So make sure you go back and rewatch those. Everyone, thanks so much. And you all have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.